This is the Police and Fire Retirement Board meeting. I'll call it to order, and I'll begin with roll call. From those that are here, Dave Wilson.
Here.
Andrew.
Here.
Dick. Yes. Sunita.
Here.
David.
Here.
And Eswar.
Here.
And I, Franco Votto, the chair, am here. Our first order of business is there is one item, there might actually be two items to waive for sunshine. I'm sorry, Maytek, we had a conversation about it. Isn't there two now? Or is there still one?
As far as I know, there's only one.
Okay, we got one item to waive on sunshine, which is the proposed red line changes on the JPC.
So that would be item 7.5C.
Yes.
Attachment.
Motion approved.
I got a motion from Andrew, I got a second from Dick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. And then our next item is a closed session.
You had the ceremonial.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that on here?
It is here. Yeah.
No, it's on, I got different ones.
You got the flag and all that.
Yes. We have a ceremonial item. I would like to ask Mr. Lanza to come up.
Can I bring my donuts?
Yeah, you can bring your donuts. You can even eat them while I'm talking because this might take a minute. Before I get to reading this plaque, we are going to honor Drew in his time and amazing work on this board. Arguably, I could say that prior to this, his entrance to this board couldn't function. But I won't say that. Just because I don't want to offend anyone. But he was one of the spearheads, along with Vince, that really took this to a next level. This board has changed. Dick knows this. This board has changed. It didn't always have the makeup it has right now. When it became this bigger public style makeup, I think it really advanced the board, and I will say you're one of the pioneers in that. So we have a plaque here for you that is written in very small letters. I'm gonna summarize some of this. Drew was appointed to the Board of Administration of the City of San Jose Police and Fire Department on May 2011 as a public member. And whereas in appreciation of Drew's 12 years and 6 months of service, Drew was the vice chair of the board in 2020, chairman of the board from 2015 and 2016, and then from 21 to November of 23. Drew has served as the chairman of the Joint Personnel Committee and the Audit Committee and the Disability Committee, which, again, thank you very, very much, because this is true to us for police and fire. Listening to and hearing these difficult situations on the Disability Committee is not an easy task, and as I'm sure Dick will say, the stack of paper that you have to read is tremendous. So that is a big thank you in itself. Ad hoc committees, Measure G implementation, audit responses, investment committee, 3 years helping guide strategies, governance, fiscal soundness, the system. I mean, really? Could you do anything else?
I was bored.
I guess so. Drew's offered stability and a progressive view during a period of composition change for the board, administration, staff, and offered his leadership and guidance on numerous issues throughout the tenure, including but not limited to Measure G and the approval of the pension pay correction plan. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Administration, Police and Fire Retirement Plan in the City of San Jose that the administration extends a thank you to Drew Lanza for his dedicated years of service to the Police and Fire Retirement Plan and for the adherence to the highest standards in quality, ethics, and integrity for the board and the performance in his valued service. presented on you this day by this board.
Well, you know me, I have to say a few words. So,
Let me hand you this.
okay, hang on. Where's the photograph? Oh, wait, hang on, come on.
Wow, that's really small print.
It makes it look like you got the award.
I'm presenting it.
He wasn't kidding. This is like Helvetica 9. The day I joined this board, and the reason I joined this board, I said I'm pretty good with high-function teams. Well, I've been doing it all my life, and I'm happy and wealthy and everything else. So I am pretty good. I'm a published author on that. So this is not me. This is all of you and all those predecessors. I mean, Andrew, you've been on this board a long time. Dick, you've been on as long as I have. We have never had a board that was not a high-function team. Some of them certainly more functioning. I think this would be the highest function team we've had to date. So don't lose that, right, guys? You are high function, which means you're better than 90% of other teams. So hold that thought. I miss you guys, and I wish I was still here. Every first Thursday of the month, I had a cold the last time, but I think of this, right? It's still on my calendar. I guess I should remove it. But Dick, in particular, I want to thank you. Dick took me under his wing, and half of what I know about this board I learned from you. So, Santos, thank you for taking a young buck under, well, you know, Dick, we're both senior citizens, but you know what I mean, right? I wasn't at the time. Thank you. Good? Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I want to open it up to members of the board who might have something they would like to say. Dick, please, start us off.
Thank you. As the longest serving board member, when I was active, I was 12 years as the vice chair of the Police and Fire Board. It was an honor at the time. And then I basically retired. And then I was asked to come back, and I served another, 14 years. So I've been around about 25 years on this board. And when you say that one person can't make a difference, it is true. Because when I got here, this process was in disarray. And we had a CEO who was in disarray. And he said, "Oh, we got a new guy coming on, a guy named Drew Lanza." I said, "Oh, all right." So we met about 4 or 5 months later, and he sure made the difference on the committees. And we had members here that weren't very supportive of the police and fire, whether it be jealousies or whatever have you. It was really bothering me, and especially the disability committees. And nothing has really changed. They keep on saying, "We'll do this, we'll do that. It'll change the numbers." It doesn't change the working conditions. People who put their lives on the line are going to get injured. You know, no disrespect, we're not librarians. We are firefighters and police officers, and we take care of folks. We're going in and y'all are coming out. That's what it's all about. So anyway, Drew took that disability committee and worked with the city council, worked with everybody here, and gave it the honor that it deserves. And it made it smooth. All the other committees, and especially investments. Then there was other folks, but it was his leadership that made the difference. I won't miss his long-winded speeches, but I'll miss the man, the person that I got a chance to know. As I always said, if I was into a building as a firefighter again, there was one guy I would be with and know we'd get out alive together would be Drew Lanza. So thank you for your service, best to your family. I appreciate the friendship we had, and hope somehow we can stay in touch.
Well, thank you, Dick, and thank you, Dick and Franco and Andrew Day, for your service. As I joked, Dick said that sentiment if I was in a burning building. You know, I can't even anybody I'd rather be in. And I said, well, that's good, Dick, because you weigh probably less than 200 pounds, so I probably could haul you out of a burning building. But if you didn't haul me out, that's okay, because I'm a pretty big guy.
Anyone else?
I'll try not to agree with what everybody's been saying, and I'll try not to repeat. But I can't thank you enough for what you've done. When you came on the board back in 2011, 2012, it was tough circumstances at the time. You weathered through it. You provided very strong leadership to get to it where we are now. And as Franco was reading off of all the things that you've done, it made me realize you sat on every single committee. You've been pretty much chair on every single committee.
Except for investment, I have been, yeah.
But you're actively involved with those, and you've always provided strong leadership. Over the years, we've had some difficult discussions, that we had when dealing with memberships, and you navigate that, all the trustees and the board through that. And I can't thank you enough as a trustee and as a plan member, and we're at a better place for what you have done. Thank you.
Well, let me say, Andrew, it's been fun sort of sharing the chairman vice chair role as we did. You're a good guy, and I hope you stick around.
Anyone else? Please, Ms. Farr.
So, I mean, meetings are always interesting with you. So that's great. I think, when I go to some of these conferences and I look at some other boards, board members, I think our board is, forward thinking, and I think you play a big role in that, have played a big role in that. And besides that, I've been here about 5 years, and I think you've been very supportive when you were chair of the committees that I've chaired, the Investment Committee and JPC, and I really appreciate that. So thank you.
I hope you stick around. You're a good guy, too. Actually, you're all good guys and gals, but we need the strength of people like Andrew and you too, Sunita.
Yeah, as I was driving here and thinking about our commendation for Drew, I was thinking what are the words that come to mind when I think of Drew's leadership. And, he wasn't chair when I joined, but very shortly thereafter, which was 2020. I would say your bold and candid leadership, there's a lot to learn from that. I think it's hard to find people who are, willing to do that, and I really appreciate that experience to have worked with you. I certainly appreciate how you have used both your academic and your business acumen in guiding many conversations. Of course, I hear what Dick is saying about your long speeches, but there was always something valuable embedded in those. And I think you were very, you always listened and heard different points of views for your tireless objective of making the system improve. I certainly appreciate you for that. I do hold you for your various IOUs for buying beer, except I'll exchange it for wine.
Anything you want, anytime.
And I hope you keep up the IOU.
I think I got a running count of about 42.
Go anytime. So when I say I'll buy the next beer, that doesn't mean I'll invite you to buy it. It means you invite me, and then anyway. So, when I first joined a charitable board, I helped raise money for the Stanford Museum after it was horribly destroyed, partially destroyed in the '89 earthquake. And when I joined, I hope I'm accomplished, and if so, it's because I've had good teachers. I've been very lucky all my life. And I had a now deceased person who's chairman of the board of trustees Stanford one time tell me, Drew, it's not complicated. It's wit, wisdom, and wealth. So for this crew, people, it's wit, wisdom, and time. So Sunita, you're funny, you're smart as a whip, and you're putting in time. So thank you. You're the perfect board member.
Thank you.
Who knows?
So I'll just say one thing. So much has been said. No other trustee has understood the value of the investment team as you have. So thank you.
Literally. He's talking about billions, folks.
That was quick, Mr. Prabhu. Just a couple of words from the staff of the office. Obviously, you all trustees have worked with Drew for many years. And I have had the experience of working for different boards here in the state of California, and I can tell you that to me, as a CEO, when I look for a trustee, half the battle is really being engaged and committed. You'll be surprised. There is a whole range of commitments and engagements in boards across the state. And so I do, on behalf of the plan members and on behalf of the staff of the Office of Retirement Services, want to thank you for your engagement, hard work, dedication, and commitment to the police and fire plan for the last 11 or 12 years. And also thank you for always being there and being a huge supporter of the staff of the Office of Retirement Services. We appreciate it, and we wish you health and good luck and a long, long life ahead of you. So thank you. And you did mention you have these meetings on your calendar. Just a reminder that they are hybrid, so you're certainly welcome to join remotely and raise your hand if you have a comment. But they're limited to 3 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, I was saying, it was somewhat torn. They're tedious, but I'm thinking I'm gone, so they're not quite so tedious. So Roberto is very special, and I hope we all appreciate this. He's kind of reached the end of his road, as I did when I hit the age he's at now. So I counted the other day. I've been on over 50 boards. Roberto, I've now dealt with over 100 CEOs, and 3 of those times I was the CEO I dealt with. Roberto, you are clearly in the top 10% of that 100. And more importantly, Roberto, I've now looked at the performance of maybe 20 or 30 small teams, startups. Your team is not much bigger than typical startup during COVID. I mean, you and Barbara and Linda knocked that sumbitch out of the park, right? We stayed coherent enough for Prabhu to pull a little stunt in April, May of that year. And that was no mean feat. Remember, we're all slightly panicked. And do you remember we were on one of the calls and somebody's wearing a mask and we're like, dude, you're on Zoom, you're in your office, take your mask off. Right? So Roberto, I've told you while you were employed by this board how special you were. I don't have any axe around, right? I'll see you in Orlando when I come out this spring. I'd like to buy you a rum. I say beer. Every time I say I'll buy you beer, out of habit he goes, I don't drink beer. Right?
I'm going to say one last thing, unless there's anyone else that wants to speak after. Go ahead, please.
If I could say something. Drew, I've known you for years as a venture investor, and I have to say I've had the pleasure of getting to know you in a more full dimension as someone that serves the public. And I think your thoughtfulness and your ability to roll up your sleeves, I think is, I think it's unique in some ways. And I've learned a lot. And I'd like to think of you in many ways as the role model of what it takes to have the commitment and the energy and the interest to serve. And so, thank you.
We did a good job of that VC strategy. We're probably the #1 VC pension fund now in the world. Well, in terms of strategy, I mean, not in terms of size.
Just real quick, Franco. I want to say on behalf of all the active and retired police and firefighters, as part of this plan, and myself being a plan member as well, thank you for always putting us first in every decision that you made as a leader on this board. Truly appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave. When Dick was first teaching me, we'd go out and have lunch with firefighters. You got a good group of friends, Dick. I'm sure you do too, Dave. And, police and fire at San Jose are good folks. Thank you for introducing me to them, and nice meeting you, and thank you for your service.
Just to follow up on Dave, this side of the room is obviously heavily weighted by people who've got a vested interest in this plan, not only for our friends, in some cases our family, and ourselves. Those of you that are public members who take the time, make the effort to help us ensure that we're doing right by our people, thank you. And for you, Drew, specifically, as successful as you've been in your life and as much as you are spread all over, to take 12 years, 13 years, and put it into this plan, that is extraordinary. So thank you.
So I will leave you with these thoughts, and I address this to our civilian members. And these, look, I'm Italian, he's Italian. Like, I grew up Roman Catholic, but I'm not a deeply religious person, nor were my parents, but they believed heavily in the philosophy of the Bible. So here's a quote from the Bible that I think answers what you just said. From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the ones who've been entrusted with much, even more will be asked. That's Luke 12:35. Right? So, if you've got kids and a nice husband, good. Give back. So thank you. It's been an honor to serve. And if they ever decide to change your mind, you can have me back. You just got to change the rules about mileage. Thank you, Frank. Over to you.
Thank you. Let's take a quick 2 to 3 minute break so people can say goodbye to Drew before we go into closed session.
Recording stopped.
Not a pee break, a bite break.
Donut break.
Oh, okay. Okay, does anyone have anything to pull from the consent calendar? There was nothing to report from closed session. Sorry, our mics weren't working. If there's nothing to pull, then a motion to,
Before we go on past the closed session item, Reed Smith recused ourselves from that closed session item.
yes, thank you. Motion to approve on the consent calendar. Moved by Dick, second.
Second.
Second by Dave Wilson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. A long consent calendar. Where are we at here? 2, investments. Mr. Prabhu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, we have no agenda items this month, but if you missed last month's board meeting,
Thank you that, by the way. Thank you. I appreciate that.
you're welcome. I can keep that for all months of the year. But if you missed last month's board meeting, please take the time, if you have, to listen to Professor Myron Scholes was here in person and gave a fantastic presentation on risk for pension plans, on risk management. And also, if you have the time, the CIO of Morgan Stanley presented to the Federated Board, which was also an excellent presentation. And so you can also listen to that, where he gave his outlook for the next 12 to 18 months.
Do you have the handouts?
I do have a soft copy of the presentation which I can forward, yes. And also, the recordings are available for the actual. So this is from Laura, estimates as of January 30th, fiscal year to date. PNF pension is 4.4%, and healthcare was 4.12%. And as Bill said, if we can just double this in the next 6 months, we'll be in good shape. But anything can happen between now and June. So anyway, these are, again, estimates, unaudited, approximate numbers for what it's worth. Does not include yesterday's sell-off, but it's still above 4%. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for our CIO? Hearing none, we'll move on. Old business, discussion and action of standing committee assignments. So, obviously, we're kind of treading water on this a little bit with Drew leaving as a trustee. I don't want to dig into the weeds right now. We've already made some, in theory, reassignments. Dave has moved to the Disability Committee. Obviously, with Drew leaving and me being the chair, I am on JPC. I know Sunita is going to step down as the chair and take a lighter role. I am just going to suggest that we approve those for now until we get a new trustee and we can reorg all the committee assignments. So that would be my recommendation. I will defer to Roberto and Maytac as to whether I can do that or not.
If you can, motion to approve.
Well, before we do that, I just want to double check the audit committee. So I know with the backup materials posted, we have Trustee Ganapati still listed as the chair. If she rotates out, we will need to reappoint someone to the audit committee so that and a chair for the audit committee.
Yes, and I apologize. I know that conversation has been had. I don't remember who.
Yeah, I think Howard is going to step in
Yes.
as chair after the February 15th meeting.
Yes.
After the February. Okay.
Yeah, February 15th, I will continue to be chair, and then from going forward,
Are you staying on the committee or
Yeah.
the committee? So, okay, so it's just
Oh,
the chair
okay.
that's switching. to
That's
the
right.
committee. Okay.
We had it.
So if everyone's good with that, we have a motion from Dick. I have a second.
I'll second.
Second, Dave Wilson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving forward. I think we're to new business. All right, is that where we're at?
Yep, new business. Oral update.
Oral update from the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you bear with me, just have a couple of announcements. The retirees 1099-Rs, which are the tax document that we have to mail out to all the retiree benefit payments for the compensation they receive in the 2023 have been mailed out. Also, the guarantee purchasing power calculation for the 2023 will be paid to those that qualify this coming month in February. Those are members that are retired, and since the retirement date, they have lost more than 25% of the purchasing power. So the goal of this benefit is to bring it up back to a 75% purchasing power from the day they retire. In addition to that, there are going to be a lot of happy police and fire retirees in February. We also make the cost of living adjustment payment, so that's going to also happen this month. Also, eligible police and fire retirees will receive the annual Medicare B reimbursement letter. The information that we're going to be requesting, it will be due back at the office on April 1st, so be on the lookout for that, that mailing. Also wanted to let you know the City Information and Systems Security Policy 1.7.6, recently adopted by both boards, was revised on December 5th, 2023, to add a requirement that departments with a dedicated IT team, which we have, such as IRS, designate a cybersecurity to ensure compliance with city standards. We have designated as our cybersecurity person Shilpi Dwevdi. Shilpi will be our cybersecurity manager in dealing on these issues with the city. There was, as the chair, you mentioned the vacant position. Right now, the process is ongoing to the city clerk. We are accepting applications. 2 of them have been received already. The process is scheduled to end early in March. So I would think the sooner you can get a member here is for your April meeting. But in all honesty, I think it's going to be probably May before you get someone on board. We will keep you posted. I will have more information of your meeting in the next month. I also wanted to update you on a couple of staffing issues at the office. I learned from Barbara yesterday that, I don't know if this ever happened before in my tenure of 11 years at the office, but we are actually fully staffed. But that's only for one bi-weekly because we're losing someone at the end of the bi-weekly. But nevertheless, we did reach fully staffed at this point. The disability analyst position has been filled by Veronica Solorio, and she will start on February 5th. Melissa Lopez joined ORS on January 22nd as a pension analyst. She transferred to us from the city clerk's office. And Han Van, which is the reason why we're no longer going to be fully staffed, who is a senior benefit analyst, will be leaving our office at the end of this week. It will be the 3rd member of our office that is agreeing to a position outside the office with the water district. So we're going to have to do something trying to match
Only
the
we
pay.
need somebody with a connect on the water district.
I don't
Yes,
know,
we may need
maybe
someone
we
like
might
that.
have to remove a trustee if
Yes.
he keeps taking our people.
So a couple of more things. Dick, I didn't do that on purpose. I just remember now that you are in the board.
And by the way, they're happy.
The ORS offices will be closed on Friday, February 9th, in celebration of the Lunar New Year, and also on Monday, February 19th, on President's Day. And the January edition of the quarterly newsletter have been mailed. That actually concludes my comments, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, got a question through the chair. When I was on the Governors Committee, meeting with Chair Franco and everyone else, and David, Ray Storms called me from the Retiree Association and said that some members have been contacted about that they want to change their service retirements to disabilities. Can you clarify that? Is that a fact?
Yeah.
Because I was taken back because, well, I'll wait to hear the answer first.
Okay, so that's an issue that we will bring to you board at a later date. But in a nutshell, what it is we have a handful of members, or at least a couple, that actually service retire some years back, let's say it's 18 years ago. Their disability application was still ongoing. The committee and the board actually found them to be disabled and approved their application, changing them from service retirement to service connection. When that took place, they were impacted because when they retired back so many years ago, they actually received a from the employer on their unused sick leave. And through MOU requirements, if there is a change from the service retirement to disability, Barbara, if I misspeak about this, please correct me.
You're not.
They
right.
they need to pay back the amount that they received for the new sick leave. In fact, and I understand it's a very challenging situation. When I'm aware at least one of those members that retired, when they retired, they did check off the box on the retirement process where they were actually advised about that situation, but obviously being so many years ago, they forgot. So now there's an amount due to the employer that is quite sizable, and they're not happy about it, and they would like to, well, I don't want to speak about what they would like to do, but I think they would like to change either the decision, they don't want to have to pay back the amount. So we're working through it, we're working with council, and as soon as we have a resolution or some more detailed information, we'll make a point to bring it to you board for discussion.
My point would be, and again, I'm not saying this to be negative in any kind of way, why wouldn't the POA Local 230 and the retirees be notified to, this might be a possible discussion, and give them the best advice for making a phone call to me now, not just me, all of us, puts us in a hard, and we just got through going through all this retirement tax issues. It starts a lot of unfunded rumors, and as soon as Ray called, I said, stop, let me finish this meeting, and listened, and try to give the best advice I can. But it's hard to give advice when you're not notified. And so I really would think that that would be the best procedure, to at least give the POA, Local 230, and the Retiree Association that this is a possibility, or whatever have you. Because if you know firefighters and police officers, the way they went, and it's not good, because it causes a lot of tension, a lot of frustration. So I'm not scolding you, I'm just saying to you, try my position or anybody else's position, especially the retiree, guys that live in Virginia or whatever have you, and they cast off rumors more than they know. So that's my input, and we need to do a lot better communication than that.
Dick, I am aware of it. I will let Dave speak to it, because the POA is aware of it. We've had these conversations, so please, Dave.
Yeah, so the Retirees Association actually meets at our hall. So whenever they had their board meeting, they brought it to me because I was in the office at that time. Of course, they brought the two retired police officers to my attention. Didn't mention anything about firefighters, but the result was the same. And I gave them the advice then on what they can do and how they should proceed and stuff like that. But I talked to them at the very beginning from almost from the time the board found out, the retirees board. I think it took a little while for the actual member to reach out to the Retirees Association, which was another issue. But as far as the POA was concerned, everything's being handled the way it should be handled at this point, and it's decisions on the individual retirees that they need to make for their own personal life, is the way I would put it. I've talked to one out of the two retired police officers personally and gave the best advice that we have over there without getting into detail.
Well, that's not what Ray Storms is saying. He's saying his board and himself did not aware of that issue. It wasn't brought to their attention.
It was not brought to their attention by the retirement system. It was brought to their attention by the retirees. And I'll speak on a personal level to that. I think that's fine, because I think it should go to the retiree personally, and the retiree will make the decision on whether they want to notify a retirees association that they may or may not belong to. So I would look at it that way.
I look at it as
And
a
if that
combination.
retiree wants to reach out for help and advice, then it's up to them
We
to
need
do
to
that.
communicate with everybody.
I also want to address it in the sense, when I was CFO of the Police Officers Association, this contract dispute came up related to a disability retirement and a sick time buyout. We actually took it to arbitration, and lost. So it's something that's been our contract. It's between the city and the individual. It really has nothing to do with this entity. They're not the one asking for the money. The sick leave buyout comes from the city to the officer. When the officer changes status to a disability retirement and he owes money back, that's going back to the city. So it really has no effect to retirement services. It has nothing to do with their pension or their pension checks. It's simply an agreement between the local or the POA and the city. And it's in their MOAs.
If I may just make one additional point, the MOAs in particular, the retirement board is not a party to the MOAs. We strictly administer the plan based on the municipal code provisions. And so the money owed back is owed back to the employer. We have nothing to do with that. In terms of collection of the money, that's not for us to decide, but we do need to report it to the employer when there is a grant of service-connected disability. And just for the benefit of the public members to kind of educate them on the issue is that generally when a member retires in service connection, they have the option to sell back their sick leave for a certain sum of money. And so a lot of these individuals had retired for service, had a service retirement, but also checked the box for service-connected disability, which later got adjudicated at a later date on their disability. When you do get a disability benefit, as far as I understand the issue, is that under the MOAs, you have to then return back some of that money that you received in sick leave pay because you got granted a disability retirement benefit. And so some of these members have been in service retirement for a period of time while their disability application was going through the process. And now we've granted that, and now the city now is, they owe money back to the city. And so that's the controversy here. And it, again, to Trustee Wilson's point, it is a very personal decision because if you decide you want a service-connected disability, you do get your 50% tax benefit from your service-connected disability for your service retirement benefit that's paid out. Or you can determine that's not worth it to me. I rather get keep the sick leave money that I received in full. So that's, again, a very personal decision, member by member. They need to consider their financial situations. That's the best advice as fiduciary counsel for the plan that I can provide to the members.
Yeah, through the chair, I understand that. In fact, as soon as they said it to me, I know what it was because we only got 80% of 1680 back in my time. I lost about $20,000 because I didn't use my sick leave. I was a good employee and very fortunate. But on the other hand, all I'm saying is real simple. The Retiree Association called me during that meeting and said they weren't informed, they didn't know, so they could help give advice, and that's all I'm saying. Period. Let's don't make it bigger than it is, please, because I appreciate what you're saying. I understand it, but the people that are being called, they don't understand it, and then they go off and cause a lot of more tension than there is. And so communication is best for all of us. If Local 230 and POA know something, we should all be shared and have that information. I didn't say make a decision for somebody, help them, and that's what I do. So, thank you.
I do believe that my conversations with the staff have indicated that they have done some educational bits around it in the more recent years. I can't speak to this, the further back in time as how sufficient our education was back then, but in the recent years it has been more robust.
As the
But
retiree
to
fire
the
rep,
point
I just give you what was asked of me of the Retiree Association president.
And what we can do is connect with the Retiree Association and have a conversation with them
But after
offline.
all we've been through, that tension is too much out there and misunderstandings, and everybody here has worked so hard to try to resolve that. And so we don't need to go off on those things because people that are retired are out of the equation.
Mr. Chair? I just have two, point well taken, Trustee Santos. We have been working on this for a while. So a couple of more items. We plan to bring to you board our budget request for the calendar year, for the fiscal year 24-25 at your meeting next month. Barbara will be this year making the presentation. She's really looking forward to it. We still are having discussions internally on the full request, and as you know how the process works, we actually communicate also with the mayor's office. So certainly we will keep you posted, but Right now, our goal is to present the budget request for your meeting next month. Worst case scenario, it will be delayed to the April meeting, but we're hoping we can do so in March. And lastly, I just wanted to thank staff and everyone. You noticed this morning you have new, nice chairs. And so I think it was about time. And so I want to thank staff for getting the new chairs after the old ones were either broken or somehow left the area. So these are now the chairs that we have for your meeting. So thank you. I conclude my
Well,
comments
let me
with that,
try
Mr. Chair.
another question to the chair. If one of those retirees is affected, are they able to call staff and then they're able to explain them what is going on?
No, yes, and this is exactly why Dick, the president of the Retiree Association, contacted me on my cell phone, and I responded to him. We have a line of communication open. The reason council is involved is because we as staff were trying to really be helpful to the member and see what options were available. So yes, they can contact staff. We have been working with them. But I think, without saying much more, this is really more of an issue between the employer and the members, and this is limited what we can do.
No, thanks. That's good.
Thank you.
Please.
About the budget, I guess I just wanted to perhaps refresh that I think it'd really be helpful to, I think I've said this before, which is when we have these ad hoc approvals to maybe put some context in the annual budget on what is included and what may not be, maybe coming down the pike. So we have some, when we make, approvals on some investment vendors or other vendors, we have some context to that. So if that can be included in the budget discussion, if it's appropriate.
So I just want to make sure that I'm clear. In the budget, when we present the budget, we actually indicate which consultants we are including in the budget. Are you asking for something more than that? Now, again, the budget, it does include consultants, but the budget does not include expenses related to investments other than the salary and benefits of the investment staff.
Yeah, I know it doesn't include the fees.
Yeah. But in terms of consulting expenses, all the contracts, we mentioned the bigger ones. I may not go through all the subscriptions costs, but we do have a section of the budget that deals with those expenses, and we actually list who they are, whether it's fiduciary counsel or let's say Mikita, or whether it's all the kind of consulting fees, they're included in there. But again, if they are fees related to investments, let's say Mikita, that is not
Yeah,
right,
no.
but yeah, that's not on the budget.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean investment fees. I meant vendors.
Yes,
We
we-
keep
we include
approving
that.
during the year vendor contracts.
That would be
For not just investments, for other.
Yes, that's right. That will be part of the budget. We do that. We have a section just for that.
Okay, any other questions for Roberto? Not moving on. Pam, do you have anything for us?
Just a couple of things coming up. Wanted to let you know that we will be going into budget session coming up very soon, and on February 13th, our council meeting will be dedicated to budget priority study session. So we'll be talking about specific issues around what our priorities will be. Just a note that our council meetings and study sessions on the 6th, the 13th, and the 16th of February will be available online, but you will no longer be able to call in. If you want to make public comment, you'll have to submit a letter, as has happened pre-COVID, or come to the meeting in person. So that'll be the budget priority session will be really the beginnings discussion of the budget. Mayor's March message is due out mid-March, and I expect to see public safety included in a large way in that budget, in addition to funding homeless emergency housing, emergency interim housing. We have a lot of these housing units that we're trying to build, but funding is going to be tight, and it's got to come from somewhere, and that I expect will come from the budget, that we'll need to make sure we can fully fund these and get some of our unhoused off the streets into temporary housing units while we work on also building affordable housing. So I also want to note that in my newsletter in January, we sent out a survey to our residents and asked them a lot of questions. We had a really good response this year, which must have been we were on point with our questions. But the top on our residents' mind is public safety. The police and fire, but predominantly police, break-ins in the streets, in cars. Although my District 9, has relatively low crime rates, each individual who's had a break-in doesn't feel that and feels that it's a much bigger issue. So it's a high priority in my district, and I know it is across the city too. So I expect to see us maintain our funding levels for police and fire, even though cuts will have to be made somewhere, and I don't have no idea where those are going to be made at this point. So that's really all I have to add at the moment, but when I have any updates about our budget, I'll let you know.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to discussion and action on the final OPEB evaluation by Chiron.
Good morning. I'll bring up the presentation. Okay, so we're here today to present the final results of the actuarial evaluation for the OPEB plan. This is our schedule for the actuarial calendar, and you can see it's the last item for this year. In addition to the OPEB valuation, we have a very short item on 5-year projections. We presented preliminary results back in December. I don't know if you recall, but there have not been significant changes since the preliminary results. But I just want to reiterate, this valuation is setting the contributions for fiscal year end 2025. It is only setting the city contributions. The member contributions, unlike the pension plan, are fixed in the statute, in the municipal code. So there's no change there. The other important thing to understand about this system is it is largely closed. So the members who receive the full benefits are Tier 1 members who did not elect to join the VEBA. And so there's no Tier 2 members, no ongoing members. It's that closed group. And so it's a different dynamic from that standpoint. The other piece is there are actually 2 different investment pools that fund the plan. The employee contributions go into the 401h account, which is a part of the pension trust. And so those monies are invested alongside the pension assets. And then the city's contributions go into a 115 trust that is invested separately and has a different investment policy. The change from the last valuation to this valuation, assets went up, liabilities went up. The liabilities went up faster than the assets, and so the funded ratio declined slightly. We'll talk about the causes of that, but the other thing to note here is the blue bars represent the liability for the members in pay status, people currently receiving the benefits, and the red bar is for the active members. And so you can see how heavily dominated the liabilities are by people who are currently receiving benefits. And the assets currently are not sufficient to pay the value of their benefits. Here we're looking at the contributions. As I indicated, the member contributions are really set in the municipal code, so there's any change in the dollar amounts is just due to payroll changes. The gold bars are the city's contribution to the trusts, and those are going up slightly, going up about $1 million for fire and less than $500,000 for police. So the other thing I didn't mention is this plan is much, much smaller than the pension plan. So when we're talking about amounts increasing, it's not anywhere on the scale of the pension contributions. I think I'll just move on from that. And here, on the left-hand side, we're showing the changes in the unfunded actuarial liability from last year to this year and what caused it. And you can see there were some slight investment gains. Contributions helped bring it down. But the big thing was that liability loss that increased the liability by about $58 million. That was largely due to premium increases on the healthcare plans, increasing the liability. There were some assumption changes that increased it. But we've been through, the chart on the right now is just showing the liability gain loss for the last 5 years. And you can see we've had gains. Gains are below zero, and losses are above. So that 58 million is the bar on the far right. The prior 4 years, we've all had gains. So we went through a period where healthcare costs did not go up as much as expected. And so we kind of had a reversion this last year where they went up more than expected. If I can bring some of the other pieces in. On the pension side, the real variable is the investments. You can see here, that's the investment gain or loss, and it's not as significant as the liability gain or loss. So here, we're much more driven by what happens with healthcare premiums. We've had assumption changes and so forth, and if I can, my Zoom stuff is getting in the way here. And our contributions are just at the level to gradually bring down the UAL. So you can see, on average, we've bounced back and forth between increasing and decreasing the UAL. Turn it to Taylor to talk about some of the trends here.
So this is a look at membership trends over the last several years. Specifically, these are active employees. We show the members eligible for catastrophic benefits in the light blue and members eligible for full benefits in the dark blue. So you can kind of clearly see how that closed group is decreasing over time. And again, just kind of a look at that closed group there. So bringing in the members currently receiving benefits, this is a look at those and at the fully active members together. And I just point out that the Medicare members, those in the light green, they're increasing over time.
What does catastrophic mean?
So
Sorry.
those are the members who are only eligible for benefits if they have a catastrophic disability.
That'd be the tier 2?
That's the tier 2 and VBA.
The long and short of it is if a police officer or firefighter was, say, only on 3 years, they're paying into a retiree health savings account. They would not have enough money if they were to suffer a catastrophic disability, shot, fall through a burning building, something, and they would not have health care. So the city would pick that up, and it only applies under that.
Thank you.
See if I can get the slide to move.
So, if that's the case, why do we say it's a closed plan?
It's not technically closed. I tried to say it's mostly closed. The catastrophic disability benefits are such a smaller liability that, and you'll see that if I can get my slides to move here, in the projections, yeah.
Being a closed plan is tier 1. Tier 1 has a retiree health care provision.
Mm-hmm.
Tier 2 does not, because they pay into a retiree healthcare account
Right.
as opposed. So to Bill's point, it's a very, very small number of people that end up in that situation. And I'd say in the last, I don't know how many years, we have one person.
We have one since Tier 2 was initiated.
Yeah.
He's not technically there yet because he hasn't been approved for disability retirement yet. But
I was gonna say, I don't recall.
he's in process. Sad story, but yeah.
Right. And this slide just shows the distribution of actives split between those members fully eligible for full benefits and the catastrophic members by age group. And here the purple dots are the members eligible for full benefits last year compared to the blue bars, which are members eligible for full benefits this year.
It doesn't like to continue if I. Yeah, that's the end of playing around with those.
This is a distribution of retired members between last valuation and this valuation. Just point out increases in the older ages compared to last time. Younger ages tend to be they're more stable or have decreased in some cases. And these are projected benefit payments over the coming years. I'd point out a couple things. One is kind of highlighting what we talked about. The catastrophic disability payments are a much smaller piece of the overall projected payments. The other is the growth and the Medicare, the payments for Medicare members as members age into that benefit.
Yeah, so a lot of times people think before Medicare, the subsidy amount is actually larger because the cost of health care is larger until Medicare kicks in and pays part of it. But you only have that pre-Medicare until you're age 65, and you have the post-Medicare for the remainder of their life. And so that ends up being the more valuable portion of the benefit. Here we're showing the projections if all assumptions are met. The gray bars are the liability, and the green line is the market value of assets. The percentage at the top is the funded percentage. And so we're currently at 39 or 36% funded, depending on police or fire, projected to get to 95% over the next 20 years if all assumptions are met. Now what's driving that is we're amortizing that unfunded liability. And this chart, each bar is the payment on the unfunded liability for a given year. And the big piece you'll see is in 2017, we started this whole funding plan and we took the whole UAL and set up an amortization schedule for it. And so those are the dark red bars at the top. The black line is the net payment. And so once those are fully paid off, the contribution, city's contribution drops dramatically. The light colors are prior years. This medium red is what we've added this year. That's the liability loss this year and the projected payments for it. Again, just to keep this in perspective, I would note that the top of the entire graph is $40 million. So when we're talking about the pension, we're well over 200 million in the contribution. So we're at a different scale here. And so here's looking at the projection. The purple bars at the bottom are the projected member payments, and you can see those declining as the people eligible for full benefits retire. The gold bars are the projected city contributions. The blue line is what we projected in the last valuation. And so you can see there's an increase this year and then scheduled increases the next 2 years. The way we amortize the changes is to phase in the effect over 3 years. And so that the loss this year takes 3 years to get the full effect. So the city's contributions are expected to increase from 19 million for police to 36 million by that peak year, and then they drop significantly. And you see a similar pattern, although lower, for fire. The one other thing I would note here is part of the statute gives the city an option to limit their contribution to 11% of payroll. And we've been hovering the last few years either right below or right above that line. And so far the city has not exercised that option. They've made the full contribution. But we are, I believe, just slightly over the line this year, but you would expect with those increases that will be a little bit more over the 11% going forward. So with that, we'll take any questions on the OPEB valuation.
Hearing no questions?
I would just, for the record, there's also a full report attached to the agenda. So it provides a whole lot more detail than we did here. But that's part of what you would adopt and accept.
Okay. Hearing no questions, we'll move on.
You need to.
Is there action on this?
This action.
Is there an action on this? Just as discussion and action. So we're just accepting the report?
No, this is, yes, this to be approved, the report, and I don't know if you want to ask if there are any comments from the public.
Do we have any public comment?
Bearing that, motion to approve.
Okay. Motion to approve by Dick Santos,
Second.
second by Sunita. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then the next one is the 5-year, right?
Yes.
Please.
So every year we provide combined 5-year projections of the pension and the OPEB benefits. These are primarily used by the city in their budgeting process. And so you just have a letter capturing all the details of the 5-year projections. There's an appendix with a 20-year pension projection, but these just reiterate things that were in the valuation report in more of a form that the city uses for their budget process.
Thank you, Bill. And I already forward the 5-year estimates and projection to the budget director for the city so that he can use that information along with the federal one for the budget process. And I know today's presentation sort of concludes Chiron involvement with the 2023 actual evaluation process. One of the items that we have later is for the board to kick off an RFP process for 2024. And I want to wish Chiron good luck. I know as staff we are happy with the work working with Chiron. But more than anything, as you know, I will be moving on this summer, so I wanted to personally thank you for your work and Chiron's work, and on behalf of the plans members. It's been a pleasure. It has been working with you and Chiron, and I will be gone, but the plans will be here, and so will the board. And as you said, these meetings are remotely, so if I'm drinking coffee and I have available time, I may join from Orlando and ask you some questions. So I wanted to, again, thank you and wish you and Chiron the best of luck. So it's been a real pleasure. So thank you for working with you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I would say it has been a very productive working relationship, and I've very much enjoyed working with you. I wish you the best in retirement. We will miss you. I'll be sure to text you during board meetings so that you can chime in.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving to 4E, discussion and action on selection process of a plan actuary.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. With us here is our accounting manager, which you cannot tell, but she's really excited that she's coming to these meetings. She's smiling right now. Right, Benji?
I'm so excited.
And she's here to present this
Isn't
item.
that the name of a song?
It is also a song, but I don't think she's going to be singing for us.
No, not quite.
To actually present the selection process, and this is an action item. Please feel free to ask any questions. We want to make sure that at the end of the day, you're well aware of what we are recommending so that you can take some action. Thank you. Benji?
Okay, so the purpose of this item is to discuss the timeline and determine the joint ad hoc committee for the selection of the actuaries should the board decide to issue an RFP instead of extending the contract. I know that's not included in the memo, but Barbara and I were talking about that, and the board does have the option of extending the contract. Like, as Roberto had mentioned, we are happy with the services. We have had them for a while. The only reason I would recommend an RFP is because in the GFOA best practices, well, it doesn't say that you should issue an RFP, but when you extend the contract, it should be at 5-year terms. So we have the last RFP we issued by the end of this term would have been 8 years ago. We have had them for 13 years. So the memo just outlines the current vendor policy, as well as it's also in line with the proposed policy on procurement and contracting that the governance committee will present later. So the left side of the chart in the memo shows the steps in the process, and then the right side is our recommendation. We do need to have a new actuary selected before the end of June, because that's when their contract expires. So this is a lot of information, so I will take any questions you have.
Hi, Benji. A couple of questions. How is this different than the last RFP? You said it was 8 years ago, or was it 2011?
It was here 8 years ago in 2016.
Okay.
It wouldn't be any different. I mean, it's basically, we just added a few services that benefits requested in the RFP, but the RFP is essentially the same and then just updated for some
Okay.
verbiage.
All right, great. And I'm not aware of this. Does Federated have a different actuary?
No, they have the same actuary, so we are presenting this to the board at their next meeting.
Okay. And then there was an ad hoc committee that was mentioned.
Yes.
How is that formed, or what is that?
Well, that's one of the things we need you to make a decision about today. I know a lot of you guys have been on different committees right now. There's a lot of things going on, so that would add additional work for you, board trustees. So, but it's your decision. We are just presenting this to you so you can make the decision.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Just for clarification, the ad hoc committee would be specific to deal with the RFP.
That's correct.
Okay.
And just determine the finalists, the interview finalists, who will be presented to the board, or presented to the board at their, I think, May meeting or April meeting.
Anyone else? Andrew?
Do you remember, I know that you said it was 8 years ago since the last RFP, how many people applied, how many firms applied?
I don't remember, but I do know, I think it was around 3 or 4. I know it was Chiron, Siegel, GRS was one of them. That was I think Federated's previous actuary, and I want to say one more, but I can't remember.
I'm trying to think about the process that was used last time. Was it staff that filtered the recipients or people that applied, and you guys brought the top 2 in staff's opinion?
That is correct.
Versus the ad hoc.
No, it was the staff that brought it to the board, but now there's, in the policy, I think that was one of the decisions 8 years ago, was that the staff would determine the last 2 interviewees, and then it would be brought to the board, and there would be no joint ad hoc committee, because the old vendor policy stated joint ad hoc committee or the boards that will interview the finalists. But the proposed one that's going to the governance says both ad hoc and boards.
You're referring to the
The one that's coming up under the governance committee section
Okay,
later.
so it's recommending ad hoc. It's not a requirement, it's a recommendation.
Well, they haven't approved the policy yet. It's going in front of you, the board today. So if they decide not to, use a joint ad hoc committee, that could be one of the things that could be changed in the policy.
All right, but let me just
Because
ask
right now it's
council
a-
then, is those ad hoc, is that a recommendation, or is that something that I ask because if it's a recommendation, then certainly I think it's always helpful, but then it will be helpful for the board to understand that because, as you mentioned, there's a lot of things going on right now, and whether they want to set up an ad hoc committee or not, then they have the choice. But if what we're going to be recommending is a requirement, then it's somewhat more of a moot point because assuming that it's approved, then they have no choice. They have to approve it with the ad hoc committee.
Well, the ad hoc committee and the current pending policy that Cortex has provided has not been approved, and so that's currently a recommendation, not a requirement. In terms of the ad hoc committee, I do want to get clarification for the board. Is it a joint ad hoc committee where there would be one liaison from each board, or are we envisioning an ad hoc committee for each plan? Because as I was reading this memo, it looked like Federated and Police and Fire do not need to share the same actuary. And so I wanted clarity on that one piece. And the second piece that I wanted to get clarification as well for the benefit of the board is on page 2 of the memo. It states that if the board retains current actuary from this RFP process, another actuary will need to be selected from the same from this same RFP to audit the current actuary. So in addition to our plan actuary, we also need an auditing actuary. And so I'm unclear for this RFP process. Would we have 2 RFPs going simultaneously, one for the auditing and one for the plan actuary, or would we pick the plan actuary first and then have a separate RFP process for the auditing? Because conceivably in the field, there's only about 4 or 5 actuaries, and say if we pick our current auditing actuary, that would disqualify them and we would have to get another one. And so I just put that out for the board to consider as well.
It would be the latter. So whoever the last 2 interview finalists are, whoever is picked as the main actuary, the second one will be the auditing actuary.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Question. So in the draft procurement policy, what is being considered as a time frame for having RFPs? Is it 5 years or 10 years? Or?
I believe it's 6 years.
5 or 6 years, I think, was
5 or
what
6
we're
years. So
talking
this
about.
is
6
sort
years.
of.
6 years, yes.
Okay. And then the other question I had was, should the board maybe is more of a consideration since we are, Chiron has been with us for a while and we're going to have some changes this year. Is it possible to just renew it for a year until we have, other things sorted out? Or does it have to be renewed for 5 years?
I mean, I think the vendor selection policy, the one that's being proposed later, the recommendation is 6 years, but it is up to the board. You have the discretion, to just extend it for a year and issue the RFP next year.
Mm-hmm. If you're going to have, CEO search going on, et cetera, you might consider. I'm just. Does it matter, or I mean?
No, that's a fair point. I don't, unless council indicates otherwise, or you feel strongly differently about it, I don't think that's a bad idea to just extend the contract another year and then wait next year until you have the new players, CEO and everything else, maybe a few board members, and then at that point you can kick off an RFP. You don't have to do it that way. I'm just saying that that's certainly an option, and I think that's a very viable approach. But again, it's the reason we're sitting here this morning is so that you can decide how would you like to proceed.
Just one last comment. What is typically the transition this is a big role in the plan, right? Between one actuary to another, is there an overlapping period? There's so much of information.
I'm not really sure. Is that?
I'm not sure what you mean by overlapping period, but I can let Chiron talk about that because they have done that many times, not just in our office, but in all across the state. But say you go with an RFP and we hire a new actuary for 2024, the new actuary will just get all the information that they need from us from the standpoint of the members and the financial statements. And I'm sure that obviously, I don't want to speak for Chiron, but there's data or they can ask questions for the work that Chiron has done in the past. I mean, I don't know what you guys do professionally. First of all, just so that it's clear, there's only a very small handful of
Yeah.
public firms that provide, the actuarial firms that provide service to public organizations like us. So they all know each other very well, but I don't know if you want to speak more about this.
One, if my memory serves right, the person who, the firm that audited us this time was the firm that was our actuary before, is that?
Many years ago, yes, it was
Okay.
one of the actually for one of the boards, because that's another thing. In the past, the two boards had different actuaries,
Oh,
and
okay.
that changed since I think Chiron was hired. Is that correct? Back in 2011.
2011, yeah.
Yes.
So I'll just speak generally for actuarial practice. When a new actuary comes in, the first thing they have to do is replicate the prior valuation to make sure that they are getting the same numbers or reasonably close to the same numbers as the prior actuary. And the prior actuary is involved in that process to provide data, answer questions, that sort of thing. Then when they move to the next year's valuation, the new actuary's on their own collecting the data from the system and moving forward. So the prior actuary is just involved with helping them make sure that they have the prior work replicated.
Makes sense.
Thank you, Bill.
Any other questions? Well, I'll make my comment, and I've said this before. I understand we're public plan and all this, but in my house, I don't get rid of my contractor to look for a new contractor that might or might not be better if I'm happy with them. I kind of agree with the position of, we got a lot going on right now, and especially with Roberto retiring and getting a new CEO, everybody being on committees, being down a board member, it's not a terrible idea to extend the contract. But that's my personal take on it. I'd welcome other opinions.
I think I generally agree with you. I would say that renewing it for another 5 years makes me a little uncomfortable, because it's always good to have another set of eyes every, I don't know, call it a decade. So if Chiron is willing to stay for another year, and then we reconsider this with the new management, that would be, I think, I mean, they may still be the people we pick, but at least to have a process.
And it is, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding from listening to staff, it's a process.
It is a process. Drafting the RFP, having, Barbara review it, issuing it.
I would be on board with the 1 year, because that would give us time to get a little settled. We have that vacant trustee position as well to consider, so.
Is there any downside to extending it by a year?
I don't see a downside, but again, that's what you're discussing, so you can decide.
I'll make the motion to extend the contract for 1 year.
Just
I'll
gonna
second it.
say the downside is that we get to see Bill's pretty face come back, month after month. But beyond that, I do have a motion, and I think I had our second. Motion, Dave. Second, Sunita?
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you.
So the item after this one is for risk strategies. It's to approve a new 5-year contract with Risk Strategies, who is our insurance broker, for a maximum contract amount of $300,000 to be split with Federated. So in August of last year, we issued an RFP for insurance broker services, but we did not get any responses. And then after looking at it again, we determined that it would qualify under the RFQ, which is a request for quote process, because the actual amount that we're paying the brokers is only $70,000. The amount that was quoted in the internal auditor's report included insurance premiums, so it seemed a lot higher than it was. So an RFQ was issued, and as a result, we received 2 quotes. One was from Risk Strategies, which is our current insurance vendor, broker, and the other one is from Epic Brokers. Risk Strategies came in at a lower base cost of $50,000 versus $62,500 for Epic Brokers. So based on the city's policy that the RFQ should be based on the lowest cost, we're recommending that we sign with Risk Strategies for 5 years. since the services would be similar. I think Brian is also on standby in case you have any questions for them.
How do you calibrate the 300,000 to the 60,000? I'm sorry, I'm not understanding.
I'm sorry, can you repeat
I
that?
thought the approval from in the agenda is for 300,000. I thought you said 60,000.
It's 60,000 a year for, per plan. It's 50,000 is the base, cost. And if they are, they have an incentive, amount written, that they want to propose, that if they can lower the insurance premium by 5%, then they would get an extra $10,000. So it's 60,000. Whereas Epic Brokers is, their base cost is 62,500, and then they have an escalation per year.
And you said the 700,000 included the premiums for, sorry, I didn't understand that.
So there's the insurance premium for our fiduciary insurance.
Oh, okay, this is the broker fee and
This is
that's the
just-
premium.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
And just so we're clear, this is a 5-year
That's correct.
contract,
It's a
and this is total between police and fire and federated.
to be split between the plans, 50-50.
It will be split, but it will not be split 50-50.
It would be split
Almost
50-50.
50-50, but a little variation, or is it 50-50?
No, we talked about it, and he
Okay.
said he would just do 50-50.
Okay, very well. Thank
Because
you.
it's the same service that he's doing for both of them.
Yes.
In the past, they used to base it on the premium.
Asset side? Yes.
So,
On the premium, okay.
yes.
Wait, just so, I mean, I'm just understanding the math. It ends on 2028 fiscal, June 30, 2028, that's four something years from now, right?
So,
And then it's 300,000 split 50-50, so that's 150, and 155, so isn't that 30? Or
no, it's
what's
60 per year. So 60 times 300, did I say 300?
Yeah, so it comes out to about 30 per plane. Is
Yeah.
that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
just see that the 300,000 is not to exceed, and
Yes,
that's a total
correct.
sum.
Yes.
So divide by 2 is 150
And by 5 is 30,000 each. So it's 30,000 per plan, so.
per plan.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's correct, sorry.
okay.
And
then
have we always incurred this cost or is this a new cost?
We have always incurred the cost. In the past, they've based it on commission. I think it was around 17% based on the insurance premium.
So we always had a broker except we didn't do an RFP for a broker. Is that what the problem
That's
was? I
correct.
forget. I'm
Yes.
sorry, it's been a while. Okay,
Yes.
got it. Okay, makes sense.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. I have a second.
Second.
I have a second. Dave Wilson will open up for conversation. I just want to ask, because you always catch me with per the city policies, we go to the cheapest vendor. I understand this is just a broker who's getting us an insurance company. Is it a different insurance company? Does staff get the, I'll say the required feedback that they need if they're reaching out? I don't want to just expel less money if we're not getting an equal service.
It-
And that's us as a board. I don't believe any of us are contacting them.
It's the same
So I'd
company
like
that
to
we've
know.
had.
So it's the same company we've had.
Yeah.
And you guys are comfortable with it?
Yes, they've
Okay.
been very responsive. We've worked with them for a long time. The issue just came out that we didn't have a contract with them, and we've never issued an RFP. So that's why we're going through this process.
Okay.
But Chair Harder brings up a good point. Do you get to see them shopping around for insurance providers? Like, do they give you some insight into that?
So what they do is give us an application, like around this time now, that we fill out to give information about the plans and the financial statements. Then we provide it to them, then they shop around, then they come back with proposals of different companies of what the premiums that are being offered and which one is the lowest one. Then I present it to Roberto, then he makes the decision
Okay,
which one
so
we
you
go
get to see that?
Yes, we
Okay,
get
great,
to see
thank
that.
you. That's a very good point, yeah.
Okay.
And if you would like to speak to the broker.
No,
No, but I mean,
No,
because
no, I
that's
mean,
fair.
I think he raised a good point. Are we
Yeah.
seeing them?
Yes.
Yeah, and a big thing for me is I want to make sure that staff is not dealing with a company or an organization that's not responsive, but
No,
we've
no.
got to go with them because of some rule. So unless there's any other questions, I'll call for the vote. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Benji.
No, she said, thank you, Benji. And thank you, Benji, for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you for being excited about coming.
Okay, I think we're moving on to retirements, to which we have one service retirement. Brendan B. Caston, Fire Engineer, Fire Department, effective January 4th, 2024, 25.81 years of service with reciprocity. I will read off the defer vested as well, and then I'll ask for any comments. Terrence M. Craig, Police Officer, Police Department, effective March 3rd, 2024, 20.15 years of service. Antonio Figueroa, Police Officer, Police Department, effective December 30th, 2023, 30.03 years of service with reciprocity.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Dick.
Second.
I have a second by Dave Wilson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any comments?
Yeah, I'll just, I worked with Brendan Caston for many years. Great gentleman. I appreciate all the hard work you provide to the city and our citizens. So enjoy your retirement and stay healthy. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll speak for Terry and Antonio. Wish them the best of luck in retirement. Obviously, it sounds like they've probably been retired for a little bit since it's deferred vested. But a continued long life. Enjoy it.
Thank you. Moving on to the one part that I don't think we necessarily look forward to. Death and survivorship notifications. Notification of the death of Roscoe Fanucci, Police Sergeant, retired January 16, 1982, died December 3rd, 2023. No survivorship benefits. Notification of the death of John Livingstone, Police Sergeant, retired August 19, 1986, died November 28, 2023. Survivor benefit to Lou Ann Livingstone, spouse. Notification of the death of Blaine Owens, Fire Captain, retired August 3rd, 2000, died November 27, 2023. No survivorship benefits. Notification of death of Gregory J. Pink, Police Officer, retired October 9th, 1979, died November 26, 2023. Survivorship benefits to Kathleen Pink, spouse. Notification of the death of David E. Tozar, Police Officer, retired January 7th, 2004, died January 13th, 2024. Survivorship benefits to Suzanne Tozer, spouse. I have a moment of silence. Thank you. Any comments?
With all respect to Dave Wilson first, and I'll be glad to say something.
Sure. Thoughts and prayers to their family and their friends. I do notice that 3 out of the 5 retirees, 37, 41, and 43 years in retirement. God bless them. That's a nice long retirement. 2 of them cut well short at 20 years in retirement. Thoughts and prayers to them.
Agreed.
Yeah, Blaine Owens, Captain Blaine Owens was a real special person, contagious laugh, and he helped out with our employee assistance program, and rest in peace. He didn't have family, and very sad, too young.
Hey, thank you. All right, moving on to committee minutes, reports, and recommendations. We'll start with the investment committee.
We've not had a meeting since the last board meeting, so we have a meeting coming up March 1st.
Did you have a party?
Okay, we'll go to 7.2, audit risk.
Same, we haven't met. We're gonna be meeting this month.
All right, so now you're gonna stick it with me then, I guess, because it seems like I've met a lot this week. Haven't we, Roberto?
You did.
I did. Governance committee, we had a lot going on. So first, it's I believe a receive and file of the minutes. And then we had a few things. Someone give me some guidance on what we need to actually take action on.
Sure.
Mr. Chair probably made that because she did a lot of
Yeah,
work
she,
that
she
day.
was there too.
I was there too. I was in San Jose three days out of this week. So the one action item that we do have before this board today that's ripe is the agenda item C, 7.3C, which is discussion and action on the board's policy on contracting and procurement for ORS's operations. There are a few things in the actual policy that's attached to the agenda that needed further refining, and so the attachment to the agenda is not subject to the board's approval for today because Cortex is going back to take back some of the direction and incorporate that and come back with a final for the committee to just sign off and make sure that they got exactly what they had instructed in the policy. But you can see in the back of with the agenda that is the draft policy in large substance. It's all there. There's just a few fine tweaking things that need to be done before we can finalize and approve it at the committee level and then bring it to the board level. However, the committee did take action to approve the delineation between when to follow city policy for contracting and procurement and when to follow the board's policy for ORS's operations on that same issue. As stated on pages 3 to 4, that is the recommendation. If you turn with me to the attachment, just so the board has it fully in front of them. If you turn to pages 3 and 4 of the proposed policy from Cortex, it states out the delineation of when we follow the city policies and when we follow the board's policies subject to being further approved. And that's what's being recommended to this board today by committee recommendation. So in broad strokes and high summary for the benefit of the public and the board, the committee had approved and recommend the following delineation. So for goods and non-consulting services over $10,000 for the life of the contract, those items would follow the city's procurement policy. So that would fall outside the scope of this board's policy that's being subject for approval. We would be following the city's policies on that. However, for consulting services and for critical plan administration services, that would be falling within the board's policy. Now, my understanding and based on the information provided by Cortex, this delineation is closely similar to what the current policy is for the city, which is that for consulting services, generally the city refers it back to the department to handle their own RFP on those issues. And so the only thing that we are adding with further clarification is that consulting services also extends to critical plan administrative services. So that's an additional carve-out that we included in the contracting and procurement policy for one reason. It's that the board and ORS alone are the fiduciaries for the administration of the plan, and that requires some independence from the city. So for example, pension administration system, we have an obligation to get those checks out, and that's our obligation alone. And so we have to make sure we can meet that obligation. And so there's a certain number of carve-outs. If you look on page 4, what is listed as critical plan administrative functions, that would be subject to our policy. It identifies death auditing services, for example, that sort of fiduciary obligation to make sure we only pay benefits when due. We can't pay someone who's already been deceased and no longer is entitled to a benefit. So that's a critical plan administrative function that our plan and ORS serves for the boards. And so that is what is being presented to the board today for approval, that delineation and scope listed on pages 3 and 4.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
In fact, David Kwan was there, myself, and you, of course, and the Federated. I do want to take the time to acknowledge Maytag because she had to read a whole lot of stuff. This was over an hour and a half meeting. And it was a good meeting between both boards getting together. That was really good. And for Council Member Foley, we also mirrored the policies of the city so we could have more existence together and be on the same policy, which was really good. But overall, it was a very good, productive meeting, and the joint meeting was very good. Thank you.
So correct me, but I know that it's not completely done, but
Right.
do we need to accept it? Do we need to approve it?
So there's two items before, trustee Sanchez was talking about the city policies aspect of it.
That's a
separate
different one.
agenda
That's the
item, but-
matrix.
Correct. Currently, the motion or the recommendation before this committee from this board from the committee is to adopt that delineation for goods and services, goods and non-consulting services over $10,000 for the duration of the life of the contract will follow city policies, and anything that is for consulting services or critical plan administrative functions as defined in the draft policy on pages 3 and 4, that delineation is presented to this board, because as you may recall, and I'll go into further comments, the mayor in 2023 in November had requested that both boards review the city policies and determine which of the policies they would adopt. This is part of that exercise.
Okay. So if someone can repeat what she just said in a motion,
I'll make a
I'll
motion
entertain
to
it.
adopt the delineation as explained by council.
I just have one clarifying question. When you say over $10,000 in the first part and you don't say any dollar in the second part, are we at the risk of an assumption that, because most of the stuff under 10 is not going to be 10,000, it's going to be much more, that the policy, somebody might read it and say you should have adopted the first. Why would we have a dollar?
Well, I think that's for the issuing RFPs and whatnot. So Barbara may be able to speak more to this. My understanding is there's certain thresholds for when we need to trigger the procurement rules. Anything below it usually is within the department's jurisdiction, but that's something operationally Barbara can
I don't know,
speak
but
to.
just let me make sure I understand the
Mhm.
question. But I'm totally for that, but with the way it reads now, where 10 doesn't have a dollar amount, it seems like if you have, let's say, a custodian that you're paying more than 10,000, that it would go into the first rule.
Well, so this issue, right, that's before the committee, right, I'm sorry, I keep saying committee because I was just with the committee, the board, is just the delineation of when to follow the city and when to follow the plan, the board's policy. Later on if you look at the full draft policy, there is an appendix that explains what dollar amounts do trigger RFIs, what triggers RFPs, when we use sole source. All the other nuts and bolts of how we go about procurement are stated elsewhere in this policy. That has not been approved yet fully by the committee because Cortex has further information they need to tweak on those various issues. And so the only issue that's before this board that's been recommended from the committee is just the scope of whether or not when to follow the city and when to follow the board. The board's policy, again, is not ripe yet, so to speak. It's still,
Okay.
you know.
So we're not inadvertently walking into a $10,000.
No.
threshold.
So
Okay.
if you look on, for example, I think it's Appendix 6.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with your answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to say,
On
yeah.
page 3, it says non-consulting critical for the 10,000.
That's
Is that
correct.
right? Yeah, so that would separate it out from section 10, if section 10 is critical.
Right.
So I don't know, that's why maybe the dollar amount doesn't need to be stated.
Well, so for example, I'm sorry, I'm speaking too closely to this. So if it is goods or non-consulting over 10,000, you're right. We could just say it's just goods if you wanted to make that clear. But, you know, there may be some other services that are non-consulting that we receive. I don't know the full gamut of it, but we did want to make that clear between the two.
Well, I think it's fine the way it is, I mean, the way I read it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. Thanks, Howard. But I just want to make a comment that this is tremendous. I mean, I think sort of being the chair of the audit committee, I've lived through the procurement audit, and you know, this is huge step, and I really commend the team for getting to this place, and hopefully that answers any concerns from the city around timeline that I heard in the last board meeting recording. So.
Thank you. So I do have a motion from Dave. Do I intend a second? Second from David. Any further discussion?
Just want to say also to the chair, thanks to Roberto and Benji for doing a lot of clarification for us. That was really helpful.
It was. It's complicated stuff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Just so that everyone is clear and staff is clear, that was just for item C, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And we will hopefully, once Cortex, my understanding is they're incorporating the edits from earlier this week, just in terms of status update on the contracting and procurement policy. and they will flip that back around. Hopefully, we'll have another joint governance committee in the next few weeks, and then once we've got that approved, hopefully by the next board meeting, we'll have something for this board to approve. Okay, so the next agenda item, if I may, which is discussion and action on proposed board policy on oversight and monitoring of contractors. So this is the second phase of the project that Cortex is working on. What's attached with your agenda is just a draft, so I just want to make that clear for both the public and the board. It's not the official document. We understand from Cortex that they will be coming back to the next Joint Governance Committee with a more fully baked policy for our review, but we did want to just show where it is currently in the process. So there's no action to be taken on item 7D, 7.3D. It's to be deferred.
So that's, I'm sorry,
Oh,
That was D.
D, yeah.
D was deferred, yeah.
so is that both D1 and 2? Or?
Yes.
Okay, D, okay. So moving on to E.
And this item is also being deferred. We discussed a trustee educational travel plan that will help streamline trustee education and attendance at conferences. We did get further clarification from the Joint Governance Committee. So again, the policy that's attached has broad strokes of what we're thinking, but it's not the final. And so we will be coming back at the next Joint Governance Committee.
Yes, there were definite tweaks to that. And I think the last one is the matrix. And unless, there's a lot to the matrix, so what I'm kind of looking for the matrix is we've got recommendations on multiple policies, with some clarifications on some that, you know, are probably prepared to adopt and some that may need further work. Correct me if I'm wrong. And what I think we're looking for is to, I guess the term would be accept the matrix as given by council.
Yes, that's
So we
the
could do further
recommendation.
work on it.
Right, so here, just for the benefit of the full board here, because we did discuss this at length at the Joint Governance Committee. So as you recall, the mayor did direct us to review the city policies and adopt the ones that we believed were appropriate for ORS's operation and to return back with a status update. We did so in November and December of 2023. We did do a phase 1. We adopted the vast majority of the city policies at that time, but there were a few policies that we wanted to take a further look and really determine based on the language if it was prudent to adopt those. And so today I'm presenting to you by the matrix, phase 2 of that review. And our recommendation is to adopt the remaining policies for the ORS's operations with certain comments or caveats, with the exception of 2 of the policies, which is Chapter 5.1, which is the procurement and contracting, which we have our separate policy underway, or we had separate vote on, and then also the travel issue, which we are still examining. So in the matrix, there are generally 4 categories that these remaining policies fall into, and I'll go through each one of them at a high level to explain to you my thought processes and the recommendations, just to streamline it a little bit. One is health and safety. These relate to the COVID safety measures. We recommend adopting them because it's prudent to do so. Their policies made sense. The other category is employee labor relations and HR. We recommend adopting them with the exception for a carve-out for the CEO and CIO because of Measure G. Measure G grants the board authority over the hiring, firing, termination, and discipline of those 2 positions. And so we would adopt all the city policies with the exception of those 2 positions, which our board charters will address. The JPC did, we'll discuss later on when we get to the JPC, changes that we've made to the JPC charter that address those issues. And so those issues would be outside the adoption of the city policies. And with one additional piece, which I'll come back to later, is that the city's policies on discipline of employees surprisingly carved out ORS as within the language of the actual policy. And so we can go ahead and adopt the city's policy on discipline because as written, it doesn't apply to us. However, we do recommend that we draft our own policy similar to what's in the city's policy to make clear that those provisions apply to ORS. And so that will be one of those policies we'll come back at phase 3 for the board and the joint committee to consider. The next category that we recommend adopting is training and development. We looked at those. Essentially what we were looking for is if any of the provisions infringed on our fiduciary duties. They did not, so we recommend adopting those. And the last category is a little bit more tricky because these relate to the financial policies. Now, in the policies themselves, the language used in the policy regarding its scope all relate to city funds, meaning money in the city's general fund, or the collection and recording of revenue which the city collects. Now, as the board and ORS, we don't deal with city funds, meaning the general fund. What we deal with is plan assets. So even looking at the policies and their language, it doesn't apply to us as written, and so we recommend adopting them. However, we also recommend adopting a separate set to make clear, essentially taking the city policies and making clear that these procedures apply to the plant assets in certain ways, because in practice, what my understanding with dealing with Benji and talking with her is that, yes, we understand that the city policies say city funds and don't apply to us. However, in practice, we have implying those procedures, regardless of whether or not they're binding on ORS and the plant assets. So we just wanted, for clarity of record, to go ahead and adopt the city's policies. However, we will be submitting our own recommendations to tweak them to make clear that they apply to plant assets for the purposes of ORS's operations. And so that's the sum total of our recommendations here, as stated in the matrix. For those few caveats that I mentioned, the CEO, CIO positions for Measure G, making clear that the financial provisions apply to the plant assets. Those will come back at a later date once we've drafted those up and we've gotten approval that this is the direction the boards want to go.
So I think in an effort to make it easy, it's pretty well spelled out in the matrix. So I think just an approval of the matrix kind of as our game plan on how we do it would be the motion that I think makes it simple.
Motion to approve.
So I have a motion from Sunita.
Second.
Second from Dick. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you for the work.
It was a lot of reading over the break, but I learned a lot about municipal governance. Let's just put
But
it
so
that way.
did we after you helped.
Okay, I think that was it for governance, if I'm not mistaken. Moving on to disability.
Yep. My update is that we got the minutes. We deferred a case back to the board, back to the committee. And we'll meet on February the 5th at 10 o'clock at the retirement building. And again, thanks for supporting Trustee Wilson, who's been a very excellent asset to our committee. Thank you.
Okay.
So there is one action item under the Disability Committee, which is 7.4C. And that was relating to Trustee Santos's comment that we were recommending referring back to the Disability Committee,
That's
the
right.
disability application of member Victor Polverino.
Yeah, we just need more additional information.
Well, and I think that's what, so we just need to
Make an action
to put it back to the
Correct.
Disability Committee for review.
Yes.
Okay, so I will actually motion for that item C to go back to the Disability Committee for further review.
Second.
I have a second from Dick. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that one. JPC.
So JPC, we met yesterday actually, so we had two items. I'll have Andrew maybe talk first about the recruitment process for the new CEO.
Yeah, Alliance came to our meeting yesterday to officially kick off the CEO executive search. It went well. They provided us a timeline of the expectations for the next 3 months, and we're moving forward. We anticipate that the open application process would probably start in the middle of February, and we'll have it open for about 30 days. And then we'll continue the process after it closes.
And the second was, there's no questions on that, the changes to the JPC charter.
So last year, this board referred back to the JPC the task of addressing what to do when there's disagreements between the two boards regarding the CEO and CIO in HR-related issues. The JPC considered that topic over the course of 3 meetings and have approved the changes to the charter to address the issue as stated, as shown in the red lines document that's provided to you. And just for the record, there was an issue when we uploaded the red line copy to our agenda posting services. And so what we have done, we've printed out the correct copy out for both the board members as well as the public. And so if you could please look at the hard copy, that would be great. And so just to satisfy the Brown Act requirement. And so what I will do is just quickly go through the changes just so that the board is aware of the recommended changes subject for approval to the JPC charter. So first, on page 1, as you'll see, it shows on the very bottom, there's a red line added to exclude the city council liaison from the board's voting on these matters because Measure G has a strict prohibition in the city charter from the city council influencing the board's decision on these matters. So we made that clear on page 1. And if you go to page 3, it regards the hiring of the CEO and the CIO positions. And so this is the everything, and I just want to put a caveated note here. Everything that's stated in the JPC where it relates to both boards will also be put into the board charter because the JPC charter governs how the JPC operates and the board charter governs how the boards operate. And so we will need to incorporate a lot of these changes into the board charter. So it may be repetitive at a later date. Just want to flag that for you all. And so this is a process where that was added to the JPC charter is when hiring a CEO. So the JPC will interview in closed session the candidates for the CEO and CIO positions and then refer it to the finalists to the full boards. The full board shall meet in a joint meeting of the 2 boards and hold a closed session to discuss and deliberate and interview these candidates jointly in closed session. And everything that I'm saying right now in terms of the hiring of the CEO and CIO position must be concluded in 1 day. We will not be extending it to multiple days. It would just be a 1-day exercise for the purposes of giving finality to the candidates. And so I just want to put that out up front. So in terms of steps, first the committees will meet jointly in closed session to interview and deliberate. Then following that joint deliberation, the 2 boards would go into separate rooms in closed session to separately deliberate and vote. And once they've taken that vote, they would reconvene jointly in closed session to report that vote to the other board. And if there's a disagreement between the 2 boards, then there will be a roll call vote of both boards. And the candidate receiving 2/3 of the board's vote of those present shall be the finalist candidate. And if there's no agreement based on that 2/3 roll call vote, the process begins again. And so you would go back to your separate rooms and redeliberate, revote, and come back together and continue that process until both boards reach consensus.
No
Once
food, no bathroom breaks.
Once a candidate has been selected, both boards shall designate and instruct a labor negotiator to negotiate a contract confidentially with the candidates. And once the final contract has been approved by both the candidates and the labor negotiator, it will come to the full board in public session for ratification and hiring of that individual. There are no changes to the performance evaluation section. Both sides have agreed to let their performance evaluation stand. There will be no reconciliation between the 2 boards. Compensation, the only thing that was added here is when the individual for compensation does not have the same performance ranking within one of each other between the 2 boards, what to do in that instance. In that instance, it will be referred back to the JPC to take further action, and then the JPC will then refer it to the board for what they believe is appropriate. The boards can either approve it or not, and if they don't, and they're still in disagreement, it repeats the process. It goes back to the JPC again to try to resolve that. The next section here is on discipline. We separated out discipline and termination from as was previously stated in the JPC charter as a separate issue. So the JPC will recommend to the boards whether or not to take disciplinary action against the CEO or the CIO, and then each of the boards will separately consider the matter in closed session following the JPC's recommendation. In circumstances where the boards do not agree on the discipline, they shall each vote again at their next regular meeting in closed session, and if at the next, so basically do another round of reconsideration. And if both boards agree, then the discipline's confirmed. If in the second round, if they don't agree, then the action fails. Any questions on that?
Are you done?
Well, there's more for termination, but let me just say briefly, because termination I think is pretty easy to discuss, because it essentially follows the same process for hiring. And then one last one, and then Sunita, the floor is yours.
Sorry.
That's okay. And the last one is just a catch-all on page 7, which is other personnel-related disagreements. So in that instance, the matter would be referred to the JPC to consider and provide a recommendation to the board. And if the board doesn't agree, it goes back to the JPC and it gets reconsidered. So now that's the sum total of the recommended changes from the JPC committee.
I have to say, my favorite part is where we get locked into a room with no bathroom breaks or food.
We need to encourage you guys to make a decision.
Been in those meetings. Motion to approve?
Well, there's a
I'm
question
sorry,
from,
but
yeah.
honestly, how is this an improvement to what we have now?
Well, for right now, there's no joint meeting between the two boards. So essentially, there's no communication between the two boards on a lot of these issues, particularly with hiring and termination. There's no way we jointly meet. And so there's also that other tiebreaker issue is 2/3 vote of majority vote between the two boards when you do jointly meet. Once it
So
fails
it's
once.
2/3 of the joint board, not 2/3 of each board. Okay.
Correct,
All
right.
And I think the big deal is that as opposed to right now, the process being you have one chair and you have the other chair having a discussion, but they don't get to hear Andrew, they don't get to hear Sunita, nobody on either board gets to hear anyone else's position or how they best. This kind of opens it up a little bit for people to have some level of conversation where maybe it makes a decision a little easier.
Yeah, and the idea between the benefit of the joint session is that our plan is unique in that the CEO and CIO report to two boards, not just one. That's very unique in the state of California and actually throughout the state of the United States. So that is one thing that's unique that I think would be beneficial to have the two boards sit, because we do want a CEO that has support by both boards, not just one.
So if I understand it correctly, the JPC will continue to function as is.
Yes.
But the recommendations from the JPC for hiring or firing or disciplinary action will come to a joint board for 2/3 vote. Is that sort of the sum and substance? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I probably should have read this, but it was so complicated that.
Yes.
It's ultimately a board decision, not just a joint personnel committee.
And for performance evaluation, we'll continue to operate as is and try and
Correct.
have the chairs sorted out. Is sort of
That's the first approach, yes. And if that doesn't work, then you go
to the joint board.
to the joint personnel committee and then to the boards.
In the event that it's that simple, it's a done deal. It's only when there's this is mostly for the disagreement or them not being on the same page.
Yeah, just wanted to get the
Yeah, so hiring, discipline, and termination will have joint sessions between the two boards because it relates to a single position that's under the jurisdiction of both. In terms of compensation and performance evaluation, each board will have their own authority. For compensation, they will also have their own authority, but have the possibility to refer it back to the JPC, to refer it back to the board. So that's the one distinction between the other categories.
Thank you for
And this is just actually a side note, this is just in writing. The reality is that if any of these decisions were needed, that's exactly what would take place. In other words, we would have to have a joint meeting in any case. It wasn't in there before, but in the past, that's how the boards have actually worked. So now, even if that wasn't in writing, now for the CEO search, you at some point will have to have a joint meeting of the boards to decide on the last two that you interview who's going to be selected. This just puts everything not only in writing, but it's pretty clear. So
Yeah,
thank you.
this gave us a process
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
reviewable.
Yes.
So this will be implemented with our search, for example.
Correct. And if you approve it today, then it's already implemented here.
So, Maytag, you mentioned that we're unique in the United States and in California. Do you know of other plans that are similarly unique? And do they have the same methodology? Do you know?
You know, I am not aware of another pension plan that where the safety members, the safety plan also share the same office as the civilian plan. Most everywhere else in the nation and throughout the state of California, the safety plan usually has their own staff, separate and apart from the civilian side. So this is unique in San Jose.
Okay.
Correct. I believe the city of Fresno sort of functions similar to us, but I'm not sure of how those two boards work compared to. I'm not even sure if they have two boards or one board. I have
Right,
to
I'm
think
not sure
about
either.
that.
Yeah, I know, like, for example, the only other board that does have safety and civilians together is San Diego. They have one board where they have both, and it's all administered within the same plan. However, it's the same plan. It's not necessarily two separate boards, two separate plans.
Yeah, I think Dave and I have been to conferences sort of around the nation, and you will see a safety plan, police and fire, and you will see like a regular city plan, but to their point, they operate two different entities. They're not under one point of the umbrella. So I think that's where we're very unique. And I honestly, and Dave, if you can remember one, I am not aware of another one that operates under the same tip of the umbrella.
No, I've never seen one where you had two plans and one system managing both plans. I have seen a city, I think it was New Jersey, was the last one I saw, where the whole city, safety and citizens were under one plan, I think what Maytag was saying, but nothing anywhere remotely like what we have.
No, this is unique.
It is. Two different masters.
Yeah.
Call it a unicorn.
That's great. Well, thank you.
I do think I have a motion. I have not heard a second yet. I had a second from Dick, I think Dave. David. I'm trying to get this, make it simple. So I have a motion, second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I think that's it for JPC.
Yeah.
I think it's just any proposed agenda items. And if I'm not hearing any, I think we're adjourned.
Yeah, I just
I'd
like
like
to
to,
point out.
I missed the commendation for Harvey last time. Is it okay to say a couple of words? As public member or whatever,
Sure.
before you adjourn?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry, it's something, I feel strongly about, so, since I joined the board, I think Harvey's been a tremendous force, personally, in terms of coming up to speed on the plan and always being available with his sage-like and, very sort of the clarity with which he has given me advice has been tremendous. And, I hope he continues to be around to help. I know he's going to be a consulting, but just as a former member of the broader team, I hope he's around for us to be able to use as a sounding board. But I just want to say he'll be very, very much missed. Very few unique people you come across in your professional life, and I feel strongly about Harvey. So.
Thank you for being thoughtful. I would second that.
I agree. But I think we rest in good hands.
Yes, of course. Yes, it's been a pleasure. I should not be missing that. To have Maytag fill big shoes to fill, and you're filling them. So.
I mean, literally.
Well,
Big
thank you,
shoes.
everyone.
I just wanted to mention that the next meeting day, March 11th, is not the 11th, it's the 7th, just so that you know. I just want you to know, so don't come up here on the 11th because the meeting is actually on Thursday, March 7th. Thank you.
Okay, I believe we're adjourned.
Recording stopped.